Hello YouTube and fellow DC Comic fans! I'm Kelly One Shot, and today we're going to talk about Heroes in Crisis number 7 from DC Comics, written by Tom King, with artwork by Clayman, who is an amazing artist by the way, and he does a tremendous job throughout this entire series, and especially on this issue. Okay, so we start this book off in the middle of a field of flowers in the present day, where we actually see Wally West, and he's alive, and he's talking about Linda, and he's talking about the poem that she gave during the two of theirs wedding, and how he sometimes goes back and revisits that poem so he can rehear it and re-feel it and see Linda up there and see that moment in his life when he was happy. He then picks up a flower and kind of shoots like sparks at the flower, and we don't know what that is yet, but we are going to find out later. And this cover, by the way, where it says Heroes in Crisis in the flower field written in flowers, is tremendous. I love it. It's awesome. We then actually go to Harley Quinn and Booster Gold, who are battling it out because each of them think that they saw the other do the killings at Sanctuary, which happened 5 days ago to the present day of this particular issue. So they're battling it out. Harley's doing the same old thing she's done, where she's kind of doing like these nursery rhymes as she's beating up on Booster. We then see Batgirl, who is with Harley, and Blue Beetle, Ted Kord, who is with Booster Gold, and the two of them are kind of talking it out, and you know, like, they don't really Batgirl's kind of embarrassed about this whole thing, and she's like, Harley, I told you not to kill him. That's not a part of the plan. And they talk about the shield and how Booster Gold's shield was destroyed, but then Ted Kord actually was able to link the shield to the ship, which is also attached to his consciousness, and that's kind of what's been powering Booster Gold's shield, because the battery in the shield is from the future that Booster Gold is from. We actually then go to one of the Sanctuary tapes, where we see Wally West the Flash on his first day at Sanctuary. He's happy, he's smiling, he's ready to get past this and work on it, and he doesn't really know where to start, but he thinks that he can do this fast, and he thinks he can get past this quick because he knows what his problem is. But then as he starts to actually talk about it, he does kind of hang his head low, and he feels sadness about the whole situation. We then actually see Barry Allen the Flash, and he keeps running around the world and then back to the Batcave because he's looking for Booster, and he's looking for Harley and Batgirl. Well, they don't actually know that Batgirl's involved yet, but he's looking for Booster and Harley and Ted Kord because they do know that Blue Beetle is working with Booster Gold. So they're kind of, Batman and Flash are kind of trying to figure it out, where Batman is kind of like waiting in the Batcave because he has all of these different alarms set that if Booster or Ted Kord mess up in any way, it's going to set off one of these alarms and alert Batman to their presence, while Flash is kind of just like frantic, and he's all over the place because he can't focus because he's very emotional, and he's just running from country to country, coming back to Batman and being like, he's not in Africa, not in Australia, not in Europe. We then actually go back to the fight with Booster Gold, where, like I said, she keeps beating down on Booster, and the shield is working. Batgirl asks about the shield. She says it's a smart idea. Then she's like, oh yeah, that's kind of attached to your consciousness, right? And he's like, yeah, it's a pretty smart idea, huh? Then we know what's going to happen, and she kind of just cracks Ted Kord in the face, and he falls down, knocking him out, which lowers the shield. Then Batgirl says, honey, I got the shield. Remember, no killing. And I'm serious. Then Booster gets scared about this because he's like, oh no, because he knows his shield's down. So Harley keeps wailing on him and saying that she's gonna kill him, and Batgirl's like, come on Harley, we just talked about this, no killing for the 8th time, come on. We then go back to another Wally West confessional tape from Sanctuary before the event happened, and he's talking about he's 1 week in and he feels like he made progress in this whole situation, and then he says that he's talking about stuff like Linda, like Irie, like Jay, all of them, all gone. And then he again gets very sad about this whole situation. It seems like the longer he's talking about it and the more he's talking about it, he's maybe not getting better, he's actually falling deeper into his depression, and he's getting sad the more he has to think about what his situation is, because it's a rough situation to have your entire family and the woman you love taken from you, and his kids don't exist anymore, and the woman that he loves, Linda, has no idea about any of this other than what he has directly told her, as there's that whole time thing with Flashpoint Paradox We're not going to get into that, but Wally was removed from the timeline, and then he was brought back at the beginning of DC Rebirth. We then again go back to Batman and Flash, and Batman talks about having all these alarms tripped, and that Flash doesn't need to do this. He can kind of sit around and wait with Batman, because eventually Booster Gold and Blue Beetle are going to mess up, and they're going to trigger one of the alarms. Batman then also mentions that he contacted Rip Hunter, who is a time traveler, and he got Rip to access the time break files, and that Rip Hunter already has several tracking things going on with Booster Gold, because Booster Gold, and I'm pretty sure Booster doesn't know this, but Rip Hunter is actually the son of Booster Gold, and they're both time travelers. But it's one of those situations where, like, nobody can know that Booster is Rip Hunter's father, because Rip Hunter is so important to time and keeping it all on lockdown, and then Booster Gold is kind of like this wacky time traveler, but he's seemingly this unimportant hero, and they kind of need to keep it that way, because if anybody finds out Booster's importance in being Rip Hunter's dad, then somebody will try to kill Booster and thus kill Rip. And it's this whole thing that's not directly talked about at all in this issue, but that's a little bit of the lore surrounding Rip Hunter and Booster Gold and their relationship together. We then actually go back to the fight, and Booster Gold is getting beat up by Harley, and he says, you know what? Fine, I did it, whatever, just kill me, just get it over with, F this, F that, F everyone, and he's ready to just deal with it and die. And Harley's just beating him up, and she's about to stab him with what looks like this big, huge pencil, but it's just like a big stick or something like that. I don't exactly know, but she's got it raised up above him, and she's gonna stab it down into Booster Gold, and then she stabs it down in the ground right next to Booster's head, not actually killing him, and she gets mad, and she's like, damn it! And then they both kind of lay there on the ground, and Booster asks Harley about the nursery rhymes, and she says, yeah, you know, superheroes, they kind of gotta talk and give this great speech when they're superheroing. I'm not really good at superheroing. And Booster's like, yeah, I'm not really good at it either. And they kind of like connect in this issue, because they both realize that neither one of them did it. And ultimately, neither one of them did this crime, and they're both kind of realizing that now, and that they need to work on a solution as opposed to working against each other. We then go back to the Flash in one of the Sanctuary tapes. This is Wally West. This is week 2, and he's like, week 2, and he's pumped about it. And he's like, what did we learn? We learned that I've been a superhero since I was a teenager, and I was struck by lightning, and I've been developing these powers since I was a kid, and that he modeled his whole life on his beloved uncle Barry Allen, who died when he ran too fast to save the world, leaving him alone. And as soon as he accepted that he was alone and he could go on alone, Barry came back. And then his whole family died, and they were taken away from him during this whole cosmic time crisis, multi-something or whatever that was caused by Barry, which was the Flashpoint Paradox, which we kind of learned might not have fully been caused by Barry, but also some meddling who is suspected to be Dr. Manhattan, but we haven't found that out yet since Rebirth began. So, again, he's like, week 2, and he's pumped about it, but ultimately, the more he talks about this stuff, he's getting mad now. He's not just getting sad, but he's also getting mad. We then actually go to the present day, where we again see Wally West alive, and he's talking about the poem again, and that he wishes that he had another, and then he picks this flower up, and he kind of snaps his fingers, which creates a crack, and it shoots like Wally's whitish blue Speed Force energy at this one flower, and this flower begins to grow and bloom, and then it blossoms, and then all of a sudden we actually see that this flower is Poison Ivy, and she has been reborn. This is Rebirth, and she's reborn, and she kind of like blossoms out of this flower. Then we actually go back to Harley Quinn, Booster Gold, Batgirl, and Blue Beetle, and they all kind of talk about it, and they talk about how Wally's not actually dead because his body that they found during the Sanctuary killings was 5 days older than the rest of the world and the rest of the bodies, and so that means that he must be alive. And then Batgirl brings up the fact that isn't today 5 days after the Sanctuary event, which means if that body is from 5 days older, that means that he's still alive today. That eventually today, 5 days after the Sanctuary killing, Wally is going to be killed and his body is going to be brought back into time so that way it can be there during the Sanctuary event. By who? We don't know. They don't know. but they're saying maybe we can save Wally before it's too late. Maybe we can see what's going to happen. So now they kind of get together as this team of unlikely heroes that the rest of the Justice League doesn't think that they can do, and that's why the Justice League thinks Booster and Harley did the killings, is because they're such failures and they're so broken. But Booster kind of says, you know what? We can do this. Blue and Gold and the Dynamicer duo can get together, we can find Wally, and we can fix this whole situation, which I'm very hopeful about. We then go back to Batman, and the alarm has been triggered because Ted Kord decided to link the Skeet robot of Booster Gold's to his network system, so that way they can kind of track and try to find where Wally West is currently. And Batman and Flash are like, hey man, the alarm went off, let's go find him. So the two of them leave the Batcave, and they're looking for all of them. We then actually go back to, like I said, the present day in the Field of Flowers, where Wally West is with Poison Ivy, and he tells her that he's sorry. And she's like, what do you mean? You helped me. Why are you sorry? And then Wally says, I didn't help you. I hurt you. And then I did this. This doesn't make up for the hurt. And it doesn't make up for, you just woke up. You have life. And I'm sorry you have to see this. Then Poison Ivy's like, I don't understand. What will I have to see? Then suddenly, with a loud crack, we see a second Wally West pop up. And I'm not talking Wallace West. I'm talking a second rebirth suit Wally West in his Flash suit, and Wally tells Poison Ivy that you're gonna have to see my death. And what I'm thinking is that he's got like a time remnant, and he's going to send himself back in the past and kill himself, and so he can hide in the future or the present day or whatever, or that he's going to stop this Flash who's killing him. It's really confusing. They don't actually tell us, but I'm very excited. I'm very curious. But right now, instead of dead Wally West, we have two active, alive Wally Wests 5 days after the events of the Sanctuary killings, and one of them will probably die, but hopefully, the main Wally, our boy, can still be alive, and hopefully he didn't do the killings at Sanctuary, but I think that he did, because he's cracking under the pressure and under the sadness, and all signs kind of point to Wally, and I really hope that's not the case. We then end this issue with the third week of Wally's confession at Sanctuary from several weeks ago, and Wally says, week 3, he's happy about it, he's counting. He's like, I didn't even think this would take 3 weeks, but here we are. And then he looks down, and then he puts his hands over his face, and he starts crying. And then he says, can't wait for week 4. And that's how we end this issue. There's a lot of questions raised. There's a lot of questions that are semi-answered, but it brought up more questions, and we see that this is too fast to save the world. So let's see what happens. I can't wait. I'm very excited. We have 2 more issues of Heroes in Crisis left, number 8 and number 9, and probably going to get all the answers that we want. It's got to start off with this Wally West thing, so we're going to learn something big in issue number 8, and they're either going to wrap it up there, or they're going to fully wrap it up in 9, but either way, those 2 next issues are going to be the most crucial and the most important, and I'm very excited about them. But this has been Heroes in Crisis number 7 from DC Comics, written by Tom King, with artwork by Clayman. I'm your host, Kelly One Shot. Take care, have a great day, and goodbye!